Hello, hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking our gallery, now that we've modeled all of our artwork, and put it into the scene. We're going to go ahead and export this all as individual FBX files using a batch export, rename all of our objects based off of our layers, and start cleaning up the scene in Blender. So a lot to do today. So there's one more thing I want to do before I export this, and I just want to show you something that I've already got set up here. So I've got actually my interior walls and my exterior walls set to different layers. So if I select walls interior and walls exterior here and select objects and then isolate them with the light bulb, isolate, you can see my interior walls are green, my exterior walls are that pink color. I don't have tops on my walls, again, just to cut down on the UV mapping. And I've even kind of got like around the door frames and stuff, a different material, or a different layer. So that way, when I export this, there'll be two separate objects. I can do like white walls on the inside, and if I wanted to do like bricks or something on the outside, I can do that. So yeah, that's just kind of a handy thing. And the way you do it is, let me join them back together just to show you. The way you do it is just by extracting surfaces. So I can go extract surface and then just select the walls and parts that you want on a different layer. So I do that all the way around, extract surfaces, join them back together. So you've got them all on one piece. Nice, see, one piece. And then create a new layer, and we go change object layer, and you can see it turns to green. So now I've got walls interior and walls exterior. So that's just a handy thing for making more design changes available. Now we are ready to begin the export process. First thing we're going to do is, of course, use our rename macro. I've got my rename macro and my batch export macro right here. Again, you can see the macro information right here. I also have it on the information on YouTube on this video you're watching on YouTube. So you can just copy and paste this Python script to a macro command. If you are a Mac or PC, you can use this same thing. PC people, you can, of course, right-click, create a new button, and then paste it into here. Do text only if you want it to just be titled rename like I've got, or you can do an image or whatever you want to make your own button. But we use that macro quite frequently. And then the other macro here is the batch export macro, which is a longer one. It's all right here. And we can go ahead and copy and paste that into the macro editor as well to do the next step. All right. So, of course, we want to make sure that all of our layers are named properly. So I'll run this script. Now everything is named properly, exterior, blah, blah, blah. Also, things that I've done in preparation is I've deleted a lot of faces that you can't really see, so that you don't really need this face underneath. And I'm going to use like a soil, and so I don't want that on my UV map to have a giant area of soil underneath where nobody's going to see. So I went ahead and just extracted the surface and deleted it, and I've done that in several places here. So let me go ahead and show you where I've done it, and maybe there's a couple places I still need to do it. So underneath here I've done it, underneath there I've done it, underneath all of these I've done it. Oh, I haven't done it there. So all you do is extract surface, click on the surface to extract, hit enter, and then delete. And what that does is it just gets rid of unnecessary surfaces. And you can do that for the bottoms and the tops of your walls. You can do that in all different kinds of locations, and it just is going to cut down on the unnecessary information on your UV map. So yeah, just think about what you don't see, extract that surface and delete it. Okay, other things that I've done here in preparation for a motion graphic that I'm going to do in my non-room here, I've created an interior structure here that has, sides all the way around it. This is actually going to be the surface I'm going to apply a motion graphic or a movie video onto. So that is going to go right there. So all you need to do if you're going to do motion graphics is create a surface that has a separate material on it. And if you want to design a TV screen or something like that, you can also design the rest of it. Just make sure that the surface that the motion graphic is going to go on is a separate object named with its own layer. That way you apply like a material your video when we get to the Unreal Engine. You're not going to do anything with it until the Unreal Engine. So keep that in mind as well. Okay. And then inside here, we've got all of our objects. We're pretty much ready to go. So first step, of course, is always making sure your FBX settings are correct. And the easiest way to do that is go to File, Export Selected, and then change it to FBX. And we're just going to do this as a demo to make sure that you've got everything set up right. So let's go to Motion Builder FBX, okay, and I'm just going to title it Delete Me, so I remember later on to delete it. And then go ahead and hit save. And what's going to happen is you're going to get these options. And you can leave it kind of in the middle there. I'm fine with leaving it in the middle. Yes, you're going to get a larger file. If you're having problems crashing or something like that, yeah, you can lower it down. But there are things that are more organic that you're going to want more detail on, and we'll have to fix all that in Blender. So I'm fine with leaving it right at the middle there, and then hit OK. Also, actually, delete me again. Go to options here and make sure that you've got this selected like this. You've got export NURBS objects as meshes. You've got export materials as Phong. I don't know the difference between these two, but it seems to work better when I've got these all set up like this. Map Rhino Z to FBXY, and then click always use these settings. And that way, when you go to do your batch export, it will reference those settings. Okay, so exporting just that ground plane was just kind of unnecessary, but it it does help with getting the objects out of the FBX when we batch export with those settings. So we've got our FBX export all set up. Now we have to do a couple more things. One, we want to go to File and go to Properties and make sure our units are set up in feet. We're going to be using feet in Blender now, so I'm going to go ahead and just change that to feet. Go ahead and hit OK and scale it as at will. All right. So the next step is to go ahead and think about materials that you might want to steal from Rhino, right? So Rhino has a bunch of materials built into it, which is awesome, that allow for us to kind of tweak in Blender, because we can use the seamless textures of like floorboards or soil or anything that's going to be tiled. We can pull some seamless stuff from the Rhino files here. So I'm actually going to apply a new material to this floor, and I'm going to use a parquet floor from Rhino's material set. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the materials window here. You can also just type the command materials and bring up a window. And I'm going to add a material, and I'm going to go ahead and go import material from library. And all of this comes up. And if you don't have all of that pulling up, you can go to download library textures, and that will pull up all of those and download it to your computer. But by default, I believe it comes in. So if you don't see that when you go import materials, that's what you need to do. And I'm going to go ahead and go to architectural, and I'm going to go to floor, wood. And then if you don't see it like this, you can always make sure that you're just looking at thumbnails or icons if you have a PC. And I'm going to look for, I want to do a parquet, dark parquet floor. So, and I don't care about the shininess or anything like that, because I'm going to do all of that later on. So I'm going to open that material, and I'm going to right click on it and assign to objects. Okay. And then if I look at this in rendered view now, you'll see parquet floor. tiled on the floor. And I don't care about how it's tiled or any of that kind of stuff because I'm going to tile it later on when I get into Blender. So I don't care about any of that. I just want the material to export with the FBX. And maybe I'm also going to do some site work stuff. So I might apply to the ground plane some soil. So let's go ahead and go to organic, bark, flowers, fur, grass, leather, mulch, shrubs, and brushes. And they've got mulch. Do I want to use mulch? No. They have grass and stuff in here. So there's all different types of stuff you can use. But I don't think I'm going to use any of this. I'm going to look for, just search in here for soil. No, not coming up. Okay. So another thing you can do if you can't find exactly the texture you're looking for is go ahead and search for soil seamless texture. Okay. So you want to find a square one, and this is 1000 by 1000, and that's an Adobe stock one as well. So you might just have to kind of edit that out. Look for one that doesn't have like lettering or anything on there. Yeah, so find a good soil. That looks nice. Is that seamless? I don't know. We'll have to try it out and see. Okay, so then just go ahead and download that. And put it in a folder that you're going to use later. So, cool. So I'm not going to use anything else, I think, from here. You can do some concrete, which is nice as well, because it does have, you know, like for the sidewalks. And we can go to concrete, from architectural, exterior. Oh, look, here we go. Hardscape. They have all of these nice tiled materials. So we're basically just going to patio bricks. Let's look for concrete. There we go. It's actually dark, rusty, light, dark. Let's just do dark. Okay, so we do some dark concrete, and then we can apply to assign to objects. Cool. And yeah, it doesn't look great there, but we can fix that later on. Okay, so once you get everything, like all of the concrete or whatever materials picked out, you don't need to do like anything like glossy metals or anything like that, because that can all be made pretty easily in Blender. Those are just a couple of materials that I'm going to steal and bring into Blender. So let's next do our batch export. And remember, with batch export, you want to make sure that you've got your Rhino file saved into a folder that is where you're going to use it, because it's going to make all of the files save directly onto into that folder. So if I go to, yeah, there they all are. All right, so now we've got all of these wonderful FBX files we're ready to work with. Another thing I like to do also is order them by size. So I can look at, okay, so oh, the exterior Voronoi piece is pretty big. So I can look at the size of these 3D assets and be like, okay, these ones are all pretty much fine for game engine purposes. But then you can look at the size of these ones and you go, oh, you know what? I do need to optimize these a little bit more and work on making sure that they scale down a little bit. So we can do that in the next software. All right, so now we're here in Blender. And just to kind of reiterate how to make sure that we're setting the files up right, let's go to File, Edit, Preferences here. And we will go to System, make sure that you've got selected your graphics card here if you've got one. And if you don't, you won't have to do this step. But if you've got your graphics card and stuff set up properly, you can make sure that everything is working well here. And then also, of course, we go over to our settings here. We change it from EV to cycles, and then I'm going to use GPU compute. You want to make sure that if you've got a graphics processor capable of doing things like ray tracing nicely, you use GPU compute. If you got a Mac, that option might not even be there. Okay, so now we are ready to go ahead and import our FBX file. And we go ahead and find it in our folder. And we grab them all and import. Okay. So now if we switch into our rendered view here, we should see materials applied to a couple of locations. Yes. And like I mentioned to you before, the tiling is not going to be quite correct. So we have to fix that before we start messing with the rest of it. Okay, so first things first is we want to go ahead and check out our wireframe here and look at how busy things are. And then we are going to go ahead and add some modifiers, decimate some stuff, do some UV mapping, all of that kind of fun stuff. So I'm going to first decimate this object here. And also want to go through and join together all of our meshes too. So if we come through here, we can see there's a few of them that are maybe not these ones, but there will be some that are going to be separated. Probably not in my artworks here. Actually, I did find one. So glass here is actually broken into individual parts, and it's based on the individual pane. So if you import one layer that has multiple parts that are separated into different UV maps, it's going to be separated. So that's what we're looking at here. So all of the glass is on separate panels here, okay? But the key thing is I wanted to show you is you select all of it and you go Control-J to join them all together. That makes it all one mesh, but it also, in the UV editing window, if we look at it there, you can see it's a UV mess. So you do need to, if you have that situation, make sure to avoid overlapping UVs, we remap it. So you go Smart UV Project, and let's do 0.01, okay, and then hit okay. And that'll give you a new UV map with all of your objects in the right place. When you bring this into the Unreal Engine, otherwise, you're going to have an issue there. Okay, so now I've got all of this selected. I'm going to go to my settings, add a modifier. The modifier I'm going to use is decimate. I'm going to do a planar decimation. I am in object mode here. And you see that it cleaned up a bit of that. I do not want to apply that yet because I'm going to actually decimate multiple things. So if I select this, by shift clicking on it, pick the things I want to decimate. I'm not going to decimate really organic things. I did make this structure pretty flat on purpose so that I could clean it up quite a bit. The domes I'm going to leave. I'm not actually going to do that. Yeah, let's hide everything that we don't want to use. H just hides stuff. So my organic sculptures, I'm going to hide. And even that one. Flat panes, you can definitely decimate. So I'm going to hide you. Hide you. Okay, the rest of it is all very flat, so it should be able to decimate okay. Oh, and the domes as well. Let's hide the domes. There it is. Okay. So now I can select everything and then shift click on the ground plane here that has the modifier already applied. And when you have that orange, that is meaning that you've got this is the primary selection. If I'm going to copy anything to the others, it's going to come from that. So I can go to Object, and then I can go to Link Transfer, and I can go to Copy Modifiers. Give it a second. You can see all of that geometry is now gone, gone. Cool. So now I'm going to switch back into a more rendered mode so that I can look and just see how things are working. So if I Control I, that does a inverse selection, and then H, I also want to check this out because this one is one that might have an opportunity to look funky, and it looks fine. So I'm good with that. So now I believe it's Alt H brings everything back. Okay. Cool. So that reduces the file size quite substantially when we re-export all of this stuff as FBXs later on to bring into the Unreal Engine. And it also lowers the overall size of things in here. So if we hit, all right. So next thing that we want to do is select everything and then go to Object, Convert to Mesh. And when we convert an object to a mesh, all of those copied modifiers, see it just disappeared over here, that now has applied. So we are now optimized. Okay. So that is the basics of importing. And then next we are going to clean up and add materials to some of the spaces and do some basic baking.